There is a place on Earth where the modern world simply doesn't exist. There's no Wi-Fi, no electricity, no governments, no laws anyone outside that island can enforce. And if you try to step onto its shores, there's a very real chance you won't leave alive. This is not in the 1800s, not during some forgotten war, but right now, in 2026.
It's illegal to go within 5 nautical miles of this island because the inhabitants are known for aggressive behavior against outsiders.
Somewhere deep in the Indian Ocean lives a tribe so isolated that they have no idea the internet exists. They have never seen a city skyline, never watched television, never sent a text message. Entire empires have risen and collapsed without them ever knowing. And they want it to stay that way. In 2018, a 26-year-old American man ignored every warning and sailed toward the island carrying nothing but a Bible, a kayak, and the belief that he was doing the right thing. Days later, witnesses say they watched his body being dragged across the beach. But the most disturbing part of this story is not the death, it's the question it leaves behind. What if the people on that island understand something about civilization that the rest of us forgot? This is the story of North Sentinel Island, the forbidden island where humanity's last untouched tribe has spent thousands of years keeping the modern world out, and where every attempt at contact ends the same way, with silence or blood. The island from above, North Sentinel Island, looks unreal. Bright white beaches wrapped around thick jungle so dark it almost looks black from the sky. Clear blue water, no hotels, no ports, no smoke from factories, no lights at night except fire. It looks untouched, because it is. The island sits in the Andaman chain in the Indian Ocean, and almost nobody is allowed anywhere near it. Indian patrol boats guard the surrounding waters, and helicopters avoid flying too low overhead, because the people living there have made one thing painfully clear: stay away. The tribe is known as the Sentinelese, and they are believed to be one of the last completely uncontacted groups on Earth. And when experts say uncontacted, they mean exactly that. No trade, no diplomacy, no social media accounts secretly posting from the jungle. Nothing. Their ancestors may have lived on those islands for more than 40,000 years. Think about that for a second. When their civilization began, mammoths still walked the earth. Every kingdom you have ever heard of came later. Ancient Egypt, the Roman Empire, the Mongols, the British Empire, modern America, all of them appeared long after the Sentinelese had already built a life on that island. And while the rest of humanity kept changing faster and faster, they didn't. Not because they couldn't, because they chose not to. That's the part people struggle to understand. We assume every isolated tribe secretly wants to join the modern world, that they're waiting to be rescued, educated, connected. But every arrow fired from that island sends the exact opposite message: leave us alone. The first warnings. For centuries, North Sentinel Island was little more than a rumor. Sailors passing through the area occasionally spotted movement along the beaches or smoke rising above the trees, but almost nobody dared land there. Then, in 1867, the island gave the outside world its first real warning. An Indian merchant ship called the Ninua crashed into the reef surrounding the island during a storm. 86 survivors made it ashore. Imagine what that felt like. You survive a shipwreck in the middle of the ocean. You crawl onto a tropical beach thinking the nightmare is over. Then, the jungle starts moving. At first, the crew heard nothing except waves. One day passed, then another, and on the third day, figures emerged from the trees, small, fast, almost completely silent. Men carrying bows and arrows began rushing toward the stranded sailors. Panic exploded across the beach. The crew grabbed rocks, broken wood, anything they could use as weapons while arrows rained down around them. A rescue ship eventually arrived before anyone was killed. But afterward, one detail terrified investigators. The arrows had iron tips. Iron. The Sentinelese had no factories, no blacksmiths, no mines. So where did the metal come from? Shipwrecks. For generations, boats had been crashing against the reefs around the island, and every wreck became something valuable. Not treasure, not gold, technology. The Sentinelese would swim out to the wrecks, strip away the metal, and carry it back to shore piece by piece, which means something incredibly important. They were isolated. But they were not ignorant. They were watching the outside world carefully from a distance, learning from it, taking only what they needed, and rejecting everything else. The man who may have destroyed trust forever. Then came the man who may have permanently poisoned any chance of peaceful contact. Maurice Vidal Portman, a British colonial officer stationed in the Andaman Islands during the late 1800s. Portman was obsessed with indigenous tribes, but not out of respect. He treated them like specimens, like curiosities to be studied and controlled. In 1880, he led an expedition onto North Sentinel Island. His team found empty huts, narrow jungle pathways, and signs that people had fled moments before they arrived. The island felt alive, just hidden. Portman later wrote about the overwhelming feeling that they were being watched from the trees the entire time. Then, he made a decision that may have changed the island forever. He captured 6 Sentinelese people, an elderly man, an elderly woman, and 4 children. He forced them onto his ship and brought them to Port Blair for what he called research. Within days, the elderly couple died. Not from violence, from sickness. Their immune systems had never encountered outside diseases before. Illnesses that most humans survive easily were catastrophic to them. Portman panicked. He quickly returned the children to the island with gifts and abandoned the expedition. But historians believe the damage may already have been done. Those children could have carried disease back home. And if they did, the consequences would have been horrifying. Imagine people in your village suddenly dying from an invisible force after strangers arrive from the sea. No explanation, no medicine, no understanding. Just death following outsiders wherever they went. If that happened, then the Sentinelese learned a lesson the hard way. Contact with the modern world kills. And from that moment on, every approaching boat may have looked less like curiosity and more like a threat. The ghost ship. In 1981, the island encountered something unlike anything the tribe had ever seen before. A massive cargo ship called the Primrose ran aground on the reefs during rough weather. Picture it from the Sentinelese perspective. You have spent your entire life seeing only forests, beaches, wooden canoes, and the open ocean. Then suddenly, a giant steel monster appears from the fog. Longer than your entire village, towering over the coastline, half submerged in the sea like some dead mechanical creature. The stranded crew soon noticed armed warriors gathering along the beach. The captain became so terrified that he radioed for emergency weapons to be dropped by air. He genuinely believed the tribe was preparing to attack. The ocean was too rough for the Sentinelese to reach the stranded ship, and the crew was rescued. The vessel was abandoned, but over time, the tribe dismantled it piece by piece, taking useful materials without embracing the outside world. Then, in the 1990s, something unexpected happened. Indian anthropologist Triloknath Pandit approached peacefully, with no weapons, no force, only gifts, mostly coconuts. At first, the Sentinelese stayed hidden in the trees, bows drawn as always. Then one day the warriors stepped forward, slowly, cautiously. They walked into the shallow water and accepted coconuts directly from the visitors. No arrows, no screaming, no violence, just 2 completely different worlds standing face to face in silence. For a moment, it felt historic, like humanity had finally found a peaceful bridge to one of its last isolated peoples. But the optimism didn't last, because scientists realized something terrifying.
Limited communication and uncertain vocabulary. Coconuts do not grow on these islands, but they are valued by the Sentinelese.
Even friendly contact could wipe the tribe out completely. A single flu virus, a cough, a fever, that's all it could take. So India made a final decision. No more contact, no tourism, no research missions, no approaching the island. Leave them alone. And for years, the world mostly respected that rule. Until one man decided the rule didn't apply to him. His name was John Allen Chau, 26 years old, American, deeply religious. He believed God had chosen him to bring Christianity to the Sentinelese tribe. He knew outsiders were banned. He knew people had died trying to approach the island. He went anyway. In November 2018, he paid fishermen to take him near North Sentinel Island, then paddled towards shore alone. According to reports, he called out, "My name is John. I love you, and Jesus loves you." Soon after, a young boy fired an arrow that struck the Bible he carried. Most would have left. John returned the next day. The fishermen later saw figures emerge from the trees and something being dragged across the sand. John Allen Chau was never seen alive again. His death divided opinions. Some called him brave, others called him reckless. But one darker question remained. What if he brought disease with him? Could one man's mission have threatened a civilization isolated for thousands of years? Nobody knows. And because nobody is allowed to check, nobody may ever know. But North Sentinel Island stays terrifying for another reason. It challenges everything modern society believes about progress. More technology, more connection, more growth. The Sentinelese rejected all of it, violently. Maybe that's unsettling because the island feels like a mirror. We live surrounded by notifications, deadlines, and algorithms shaping our lives. Meanwhile, an ancient tribe wakes to waves and wind. No ads, no politics, no endless pressure, just life. There's a theory called the zoo hypothesis. Advanced civilizations may avoid contact with less advanced ones to prevent destroying them. Strangely, that's how the world treats North Sentinel Island today. We could go there any time. Maybe wisdom means choosing not to. Empires failed to conquer them. Governments failed to control them. Missionaries failed to change them. And maybe the most shocking possibility is this. They saw what the modern world brings: violence, greed, disease, chaos, and decided none of it belonged on their island. So the question remains, should humanity ever try contacting the Sentinelese again, or leave them untouched forever?